All right, moving on to a different sport now. McKinley, Massillon, Ignatius and Ed's, Avon and Avon Lake. These are some of the storied high school rivalries here in Northeast Ohio. But perhaps the greatest battle of all took place in the 1990s.
It was huge. It took place on the wrestling mats of two local high school teams ranked #1 and #2 in the entire country. Their matchups drew thousands of fans. They were events. And now 3 decades later, the full story of this clash of dynasties is about to be told.
30 years and 30 miles separate today's best from one of the greatest high school rivalries ever told.
I wanted to punch these guys right in the face because they were the best.
Between the St. Edward Eagles,
there was nothing more that we wanted to do than to crush those guys,
and the Walsh Jesuit Warriors.
You're going to go to Walsh, you're going to be part of helping us take out St. Ed's. That's what you're coming to do.
Ben, take one.
Ben Hatta travels the world as a film and television producer, but he's come home to tell a story that's deeply personal.
It really was sort of this band of brothers, these guys that went to war together.
Two teams, two eras are about to clash.
St. Edward Eagles will wrestle the Walsh Warriors.
Clash of Dynasties is a 4-part docu-series covering the bitter rivalry between the wrestling powerhouses over a 10-year period.
There you can see Hatta look over at the scoreboard to see what the time is.
Hatta himself wrestled at Ed's and is one in a long line of state champions. At the surface, he says Clash is a classical tale of David versus Goliath, which starts with the Eagles on top of the mountain.
ESPN would show up every weekend and cover them. They're in all the newspapers, all the magazines. It really was sort of the hotbed of high school wrestling, was just in this 30-mile sort of radius.
And the Warriors intent on taking them down.
Ed's was the perfect uniforms. Everything was the same. They wrestled the same. They practiced the same. We were a bunch of ragtags compared to a bunch of very uniform trained killers.
Led by a man driven to rewrite history.
They won't let you down, I'll tell you that.
When our coach, Bill Barger, wanted to go take out St. Ed's, he started scheduling every tournament St. Ed's was in, we were going to be in. He wanted to wrestle them every single weekend if he could, because he figured that's the way we're going to beat them.
But as all classic conflicts do, Clash of Dynasties transcends what happens on the battlefield and reveals young fighters not just grappling against each other, but with immense personal pain.
There were 7 or 8 deaths that took place over this decade that affected both teams, whether they were coaches, parents, teammates.
By revisiting memories and meeting old foes, the Eagles and Warriors found new stories to tell.
Even though these teams were on opposite sides, they shared way more in common than they knew or, at the time.
Like Yoshi Nakamura and Sonny Marchette, still loyal to their alma maters, but bonded 30 years later through shared tragedy.
and what I realized is that Sonny and I, completely different lives, completely different areas in Ohio, completely different upbringing, but we had a similar path. My dad died when I was 13.
My father passed away when I was a freshman, right after the state tournament.
Both men realizing that sometimes the voice you need most is the one you least expect.
So I said, so I'm going to pick up the phone and call him. And I did, out of the blue.
The conversation that we had was right on time for the both of us, because just because he called me doesn't mean that I didn't need him in that same conversation, because I did.
Those who appear are all still connected to the sport in some way and invested in its future, hoping the rivalry is one day renewed.
It was a moment in time that was just fantastic. That might not ever happen again.
Well, there is a lot of state championship hardware among those 4 men. Episodes 1 and 2 of Clash and Dynasties will be shown in Akron on Friday.
Yeah, then episodes 3 and 4 will premiere here in Cleveland. That will be on Sunday. If you're looking for tickets to go to these events, we've got all the info that you need on our website, WKYC.com. I wrestled in the 80s.
You did.
And it was big. Wrestling's always been a big sport in Ohio. But I always watched from a distance as this rivalry grew to not just a state thing, but a national thing.
As a matter of fact, you did wrestle
many
in the 80s.
Wow, you had to dig deep to find that.
That,
there
my
I am.
friends, is young Jason Crawford.
Yeah, that's what I went by back in the day, Jason.
With a mop on his head.
Yeah. Well, it was hidden by, and I'll tell you, it was hidden by the headgear.
Of course.
But when you're in that lifestyle, it's like the most important thing in your life.
Sure.
That's the thing about wrestling. It's such an individual and a commitment sport.
Right.
You live it, you eat it, you breathe it, it's your life. But nowhere was that more profound than St. Ed's and Walsh Jesuit.
Right.
Warriors, elite athletes. I can't wait to see this docuseries. I'm very much looking forward to it. Susan Moses, by the way, did a wonderful, wonderful job bringing all of that into a 3.5-minute feature.
It's a lot because there's 4 whole episodes of
Yes.
the docuseries.
Yeah.
So much more to come on that. Hopefully you'll get to enjoy it too.
Now,